Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Lewis Harris with Record in Progress. This is a podcast I created in the wake of the 2024 election results. I was one of the folks who were very surprised by the results and believed I could have done more to ensure the election went the way I hoped it would go. Since I didn't do that last year, I am taking action this year and really in the next 4 years and going forward. So I created the Record in Progress podcast to share perspectives, stories, and narratives to create understanding and a pathway towards a unified society. And so I'm joined today by a friend I have on social media who is active in their respective community. Would you introduce yourself?
Thanks. My name is Tracy, and I hail from Eastern Washington, which is kind of a purple area in politics. And it's my family's traditional home for 6 generations. I am active in politics and happy to be here today. Like you, I was surprised at the results, and I can share a little bit about why I think I was surprised, point towards some things I think others can do as we move forward.
Excellent. And we'll get to those, whatever you have to say, via the questions, which will be rolling in here very quickly. So, how do you identify yourself, Tracy?
Yeah, she, her.
Okay. What do you do professionally?
So currently, I'm the grant writer for the African American Leadership Forum out of South King County and Pierce. I'm also a retired public school teacher and university professor.
Excellent. Really great to have you because you have some perspectives around Black excellence, Black liberation, or the social justice movement, right? But you also have an education background, which I'm sure you have a lot of wisdom to share with us. So when you said what you do, the next question is, what is a credential that you use most often to sell yourself on job applications?
Yeah, I do have a PhD. So Dr. Tracy is what they call me at the workplace. I contract, but yeah.
Well, very good. And just to clarify, what did you get your doctorate in?
In educational leadership.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So how did you vote in the 2024 presidential election?
Yeah, I was Kamala Harris all the way and blue ticket all the way down. In my county, I helped a young Latina lawyer run for county commissioner, which there has not been a progressive in the county commissioner seat forever. We ran her as a non-party preference, so I ran her as an independent.
Wow.
And I've been working with her for about 5 years. She approached the organization that I was president of for a scholarship to go to Emerge Washington training. We used Kamala Harris's plan for how to run a campaign in that training. She won by a 62% margin, which was the best we've ever done in the county. We have a couple other progressives that ran 2 years ago, and we have a few people on the city council. But other than that, we've got an all red wall in front of us. It felt really good. She put some retired Republican office holders on her kitchen cabinet. About 50% of us on her kitchen cabinet were people who had already held office and identified as Republican. That helped a lot because there were voices of experience, leaders that people appreciated.
Okay, so your candidate won, which congratulations.
Thanks.
It had a bipartisan cabinet, right?
Yeah.
And as you and I both know, in the eastern half of Washington state, it is mostly rural and Republican.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your candidate strategy did well, obviously.
My theory about this, I learned a lot by working with Lisa Brown when she ran for Congress in 2018. Now she is the mayor of Spokane. Lisa is a bipartisan bridge builder, even though she was the Senate majority leader in the state as a Democrat. She knows how to build bridges with other folks. In places where it's not blue, 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 we've got to really identify with our independent friends and say, how do we share values and bring them out to vote? Because about a third of the voters aren't voting. People who are registered just aren't coming out to vote. And although Washington State, I have to give kudos to our friend Shasti Conrad, because Washington State was the one state that got bluer in this election cycle. Axios has the data that shows which states turn more red, which states turn more blue, and Washington State stands out like the gold star state. So
we accomplished something despite, the
We
national
did.
result. I actually saw that chart, so I know exactly the chart you're talking about. Uh,
Thanks.
and that is impressive. So thank you for that. The next question I have is, what are three feelings that you have about the results of the 2024 presidential election?
I would say deep sadness over the opportunity to elect such a qualified Black woman. During COVID, Shasti and I ran a PAC, Opportunity PAC, to elect Black women in Washington state. We had up close experience watching their campaigns. What PACs can do is independent expenditures. So we ran big virtual fundraisers and did lots of media. We got national, regional, and local media for them. We knew they would be great when they got elected. They've been active in our legislature, writing bills,
Right.
passing bills. Jamila Taylor is one example, just a hot shot of a legislator. We need these women in leadership. So just the fact that we knew that Kamala comes right out of that mode and would have been such a great leader for all the people. I mean, I think she ran a terrific campaign. So sadness that she didn't get elected. I think frustration because even though I call myself part of the big D tent, the big Democratic tent, I am not currently, well, I'm a vice chair in a legislative district, but I'm not
That
part of kind of the inner workings of the Democratic Party. And I feel like we fall all over ourselves as Democrats. We sanction each other, measure each other's speech, and we don't have, as much as we're a big tent party, we don't embrace big tent strategies. I wish we could figure out a better way to get more people engaged and involved. I have a 29-year-old son, for instance, and he feels very disenfranchised from the organization. Even though he knows Shasti personally, he likes her. The Democratic Party is not for me, even though he's solidly Democratic and he's always telling me I'm just not liberal enough.
But that also speaks to what you're talking about, that we are a big tent, but we are divided amongst that tent. It almost seems like we are vying for importance in our respective identities when we should be uniting around issues that unite us all, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think my third emotion is I'm really committed to listening. I want to listen to folks. And kind of paired with that, I was so motivated by Heather Cox Richardson's live podcast yesterday. She talked about the fact that those of us who have facts in our hands should be getting those facts out in other ways to other folks, because there was a lot of misinformation in this campaign, a lot of disinformation, and people we know just didn't get the message. I think the one really bright spot for me in this whole thing was Tim Walz. I think he made it normal to be in politics again. He's a regular guy. I think people could say, oh gosh, he's like the coach I had in college or high school. We need more of that. I had Republican friends who came to me and said, hey, if he's on the ticket, I can vote Democrat for the first time. We need more regular people in politics that people can vote for. And I do think candidates bring out the voters. I don't think the issues, we know that abortion did not motivate voters this time. We need candidates who are going to motivate voters.
Well, I agree. You have a brilliant insight on political workings and consulting. One of the things I'm reconciling in the election outcome were the issues, right? Because you're right, Tim Walz did a level of normalcy, right? And really majority, if we're talking about white voters or white male voters who have obviously gone the Trump route. But you said the candidates bring the people out. Do you think that the issues also really matter? I know you have a unique perspective as a political consultant, so do tell.
Yeah, I do think issues, especially for young voters, bring people out. But I think that at the end of the day, it's the candidates that we're putting in place to handle our issues.
Right.
And I think candidates motivate so much more. I thought Kamala did a great job of talking about the issues. I disagree with people who said she didn't do what she needed to do. She ran a picture perfect campaign. There are people who say she flubbed up when she took a softball question on The View. No, she was being honest. People maybe had a different idea of how they wanted her to answer the question. They wanted her to separate herself from Biden. Biden's been a great president, and they have come to terms with their differences. I think she's respectful. They came together over some differences to even get her on the ticket. Remember, she sanctioned him at that one debate. I think it was school busing. And she's like, hey, I'm a person who benefited from school busing. And you maybe should talk to the Black community about this. While I think issues are important and it might motivate certain demographics, our candidates have to be seen as trustworthy. And I think the issue in this campaign turned out to be economics. And I don't know that people understand economics. It's not just about what's at our pocketbook level. There's another layer of economics. And I think there's some disconnect in the general population.
Sure, sure. And let's dig into that a little bit. So the next question I have is, what do you fear most about the next Trump presidency? I know.
The immigration issues. In his first candidacy, sent me straight to my congresswoman's office. When he put on the Muslim ban, I knew instantly that we had a problem. So I went straight down. Kathy McMorris Rogers was my representative. I went to her office. I met some friends there that are now lifelong friends. 4 of us sat in the office and talked to her staffer for like 3 hours. She was like, well, there aren't Muslims in Eastern Washington. I said, pardon me? Of course there are Muslims. Well, who are they? I'm telling you who they are. You represent all the people. And of course you represent Muslims. There was a Muslim mosque in King County that had been bombed and a fire. The person leading the recovery efforts for that was a Walla Walla gal, a local gal. So I was like, are you kidding? These are issues that are important. My son had a professor at Washington State who he had a great class with who was Muslim. Like, we really value that for our students in education. And, we want all of our neighbors to be treated equally. We don't want certain populations to be targeted and banned. So ridiculous. Right. And I worry so much about my Latina friends who don't have papers. We've got dreamers who don't have a pathway to citizenship, and we've got elders. Let's be really honest. We've got grandparents out there. And it's not okay to have them feel unsafe. And even some of my friends who are naturalized, I've gotten messages from some of my former students saying, hey, I'm a naturalized citizen. I'm worried. And I reached out to one of my immigration lawyer friends and said, hey, what do you think? And she's like, they don't need to worry. But it's true that there's just fear in the general population because, their group is being targeted and it's not okay.
That's a great point. My concerns are also shared with them. And it's just like, it's up because, on the one hand, it hasn't happened yet. But like Maya Angelou said, believe somebody when they show you who they are, right? Trump has shown us very consistently who he is. And it's indicative with some of what he's saying now that he is president-elect. I hear you, and I'm hearing from my friends and family members who are also of that community. What do you hope most about the next Trump presidency?
I hope that those of us who know how to treat each other better can step forward and lead. Okay. My friend Cindy Bright runs Heartbeat Radio on Wednesday nights, and she pulled together a group and said, hey, we need a new version of the Green Book. Got a group of people working on that. She said, as Black women, we've got to pull together. And I feel privileged to be a listener in that space. I'm not Black, but I'm welcomed to be a listener in there. It gives me hope that people are pulling together. I'm also going to be on a call tomorrow morning with my friend Heather from Seattle, who is pulling a group of women together. How do we help one another? I've got cousins in North Idaho who voted for a man who's taken away maternal health care. These are all women of childbearing age, and they have no maternal health care in North Idaho. How can I both love them, help them, and maybe educate them that perhaps we can solve this at the ballot box next time?
Say that. Yeah, that's absolutely right. You're giving me tingles because a lot of the messages out of the Democratic side after the election results were, we have to come together, have our community, preserve our safe spaces, and strategize because things are going to change really quickly for us in this country.
Absolutely.
So here's the next question. What do you believe about the people who voted opposite of you?
I think they were underinformed and perhaps even misinformed. One of my bridesmaids' husband was a big Trumper, and he just buys the party line. He doesn't question. I have a couple people in my family that vote Republican, and they just don't read up on the issues. And their news sources, I don't believe Fox is news. I think Fox is entertainment.
Right.
I have to take a page out of my mother and grandmother's book. My grandmother lived to 102 and said, Fox is not allowed in my home. My mother has done the same thing and been more bold and said, it's not news. Right. We need people to listen to verified sources.
Right. So what is the worst thing about society to you?
I think that we're all in these little foxholes. The new media has given us the ability to go down deep into these little post-hole, foxhole We have little tiny silos. It's kind of like the Protestant church in America. There's like
Right.
880 different kinds of Protestantism. We're not talking to each other across differences. We're
Mm,
talking within our own. Everybody feels like everybody else is the enemy in some respect. And I think that's a really sad commentary. Like, if they're not with me, they're against me. And I just don't think it's true at the base. I think people are really good. I think at the end of the day, good people are going to do good things.
right.
But I think we need to get up out of those foxholes and shake each other's hand, be willing to talk on the street and meet our neighbors that we don't know, and conversations across differences in a way that's respectful and that we hear. There's obviously fear and pain in the votes of other folks.
Right. And you mentioned these foxholes and silos, and what I'm thinking is like, the social media feed, right? Like the algorithms
Mm,
are giving us exactly what we lean towards, and we are
yeah.
somehow misinformed about what's happening on the other side. One of the reasons why I created this podcast, and really part of my ethos as a person, is to understand all sides of an issue so that I can have a more comprehensive approach to solving whatever problems there are, right? And while I don't think that that's totally novel, I know that that's not what the majority of people believe they should approach an issue with. I don't know if it's me because I'm a college educated and thus an elite asshole to some,
Yeah.
but information and objective information are important for us in this world we live in. It's almost abstract. Mm. So,
Yeah. Kudos to you for doing this. I think it's incredibly valuable. And I'm looking forward to hearing all your episodes.
excellent.
Where do we find the feed, by the way?
Good question. I'm currently on Spotify podcasts. I have a YouTube channel, Facebook, and a website. I'm probably going to be diversifying the distribution more as I start publishing more episodes, but I'm going to have my first episode out today. I was realizing, oh, maybe I'll do one episode a week or maybe two episodes a week. And I'm like, people have to know what's going on now. So I already have about 5 different interviews under my belt. So I'm going to start publishing and growing the podcast as I go instead of trying to keep it perfect from the get go.
Well done.
Thanks for asking that. The next question, we only have 3 more questions left. What do you believe is one of the reasons that Trump and the largely Republican Congress was elected?
I think they were elected because people are afraid of not having enough money to take care of
Yeah.
their family. I think it's that dinner table kind of economics
Yeah.
piece. The one analysis that I agreed with, I can't think of his name, but he was saying, people felt better when they had some PPP money in their pocket during COVID and Trump signed those checks. And so people believe that Trump brought the solutions.
Right.
And we know that's not really true. Congress had a lot to do with that. Comes back to those economic issues, and you think, how can we get in a place where people aren't feeling so much economic stress? Isn't it interesting that people who say they don't like socialism or communism do like it when they're feeling the effects of it? How do we help educate people that when government steps in to help you when you have a need, that's part of how we take care of each other?
Right. I hear you. And because I work in government, and you've probably seen this through the work that you've done, there are inefficiencies, right? I'm a city council member in Mukilteo, and the cost we have to incur to contract with a private service provider is astronomically more than if we had it in-house. And there's some relativity to that, right? Depending on what the service is, length of service and all that stuff. But the point is, we have some structural issues in how our governments operate, which has turned so many voters off and has
Yeah.
validated what Trump is saying. It doesn't matter how you vote. Everybody can look at government, whether it's local or national, and see inefficiencies there, or there's some waste
Yeah.
there, or there's some inequities, even in how laws are applied. And it's like, we really, as the foundation of our nation, have to reconcile those things. As a nation, we have to socially reconcile how we treat each other, right? Good meaning people, regardless of how they voted, understand that the people in power don't really share those same values. It's scary to see what's going to happen. So the next question is, do you feel like you did enough to affect the election in the way you wanted to see it go?
I feel really good about the county commissioner race that I helped support. I led a group of women that equipped a lot of women to be engaged in other races. We had a number of folks running in our county, and we had a large group of women on different committees and campaigns. I feel like that went well. I also tried to help in my congressional race, and I didn't think that went as well. I really like the candidate. She's terrific. She had great experience, but I think it's a winnable seat. And I think we didn't do what we needed to do to get folks to hear her and see her. One example is that when Lisa Brown was running, I got an auditorium at Whitman College, and we filled it up with 500 people, standing room only, to hear Lisa. This candidate got a larger facility, and maybe 100 people showed up. So there's a difference in how we got people out to hear that candidate. I think voters need to hear from candidates, especially candidates like this that they didn't really know. And maybe part of it was that Lisa was very well known when she ran. And it felt easy to garner support for her. And it wasn't quite as easy on this other one.
I'm curious what the candidate is, if you want to share.
Oh, sure. It was Carmela Conroy. She ran for Congress in the 5th Congressional District. We know that Lisa didn't win because she had a super PAC against her. Paul Ryan brought in $2 million and ran negative ads on TV for the last 6 weeks. And that was brutal. I'm all for limiting the time that people can campaign, but more so, I think we've got to get into the financing of campaigns. I think Citizens United has just killed us and makes regular people feel like their vote doesn't count. When you're only looking at the swing states, we've got to get back to where everybody feels like your vote matters. Maybe we don't announce the results of the election until all of votes are counted or something. We've got a little bit of trouble in that whole frame.
No, you're right. The Citizens United, we all most folks know that is part of the reason why politics have become so dark and corrupt in America. You did also mention we need to make people know that their vote matters, right? And that's something I know you've heard for years. I've heard for years. It's not a new concept, but is a function of some of the erosion that has happened in valuing people's voices and creating access for Americans to vote. And some of the rhetoric built in the last 20 years has kind of done some of that erosion. Thank you for your answer. The last question we have is, what do you want to say to the version of yourself 4 years down the road?
Yeah. I hope that I stay engaged with Emerge Washington and Emerge America to help women candidates. I'm thrilled with where Indivisible is. The groups in Washington State, in Western Washington, have been very active and helpful. I think Eastern Washington, maybe I can have a hand in helping those Indivisible groups come back into activity, especially in the congressional district. I think that could really help. I think when regular people talk to other regular people, we make a difference. And I want to be part of moving the needle. I guess I feel partially satisfied about what I did and partially like maybe I could do some more.
Any person with a shred of leadership in them always thinks that they can do more. I appreciate your leadership, your expertise, knowledge, and the work that you do. We do have to endure, and we do have to organize, and we have to forward. So thank you so much, Tracy. I appreciate you and your time. Just as a sound off for the record in progress, we are all different, but we are all also the same. What matters is we recognize that and move forward to make a better world for all of us. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you for doing this. So this was great.
Absolutely.
Look forward to more.
You take care.
Oh, you too. Bye-bye.